Traveling in the Philippines at the moment is not a simple task. If you go on the Department of Tourism's website here in the Philippines, you'll see a limited options of open tourism sites in the country. Places like El Nido, the place directly behind me right now on the beautiful island of Palawan, places like Bohol and Cebu are officially declared open for tourism in the country. It's not impossible to travel here, but it's definitely not a simple task. For the last few weeks, I've had the privilege of exploring this amazing island with a few of my friends pretty much to ourselves. And now I'm going to run down to you guys everything you need to know about traveling to El Nido during 2021 in this crazy COVID-19 pandemic. I am going to detail to you every little requirement, the places you should go and shouldn't go, things that are closed and opens, the restaurants, the sites, everything you need to know right here in this video. So let's begin. Okay, so first I want to tackle the hardest part of your journey here, and that's the requirements to actually getting here.
All right, so as for the requirements to arrive in El Nido, you're going to need 4 things, and you're going to need to submit them on El Nido's formal tourism website. First thing you're going to need is a health declaration form issued to you by your barangay or whatever municipality you currently live in the Philippines. As well, you're going to need a negative RT-PCR swab test. At the moment, from what I understand, they don't accept anything other than the official PCRs, which are the most expensive tests, but you need to get those done 48 hours before your flight and get a result that doesn't expire within 48 hours. It's a little tricky, a little more expensive, but I'm sure you'll be able to do it. As well, you're gonna need a reservation in the accommodation that you're staying in, and as well as a travel itinerary. Luckily for me, the hotel that I booked in El Nido was able to organize a travel itinerary for me alongside the reservation. But you can do this independently if you have your own itinerary you want to follow. So on El Nido's official tourism website, you're going to want to get your QR code for your tourist ID by submitting all the paperwork you just completed. You just upload those documents, and then eventually they will generate you a QR code. This QR code will be used to enter El Nido at the airport or wherever you land, and you'll be using this to get on various tours and do different activities throughout the province. Keep in mind that for me, this process went really smoothly. I submitted my QR code application the night before and received it the morning of my flight. But for some of my friends, they submitted it and never got their QR code back, even when we arrived in El Nido. Just make sure you try to get it done, if you can, as early before your flight as possible so you're not stuck last moment.
Now I want to talk to you guys about sites and things you want to do here in El Nido during this pandemic. But first, let me plug my Airbnb account. I want to make sure I let you guys know that if you use my Airbnb code down below in the description, you'll get $40 off, which could be well over a few free nights to stay here in El Nido just by signing up and using my code. I'll get a little kickback, you'll get a little kickback, and obviously you'll be supporting the local owners of Airbnbs across El Nido. Just make sure, again, that they fall under the DOT requirements of you arriving here. Just make sure that that's cleared out before you do. Check out my Airbnb link down below in the description. A big shout out to the location I'm currently standing on, having this amazing panoramic view of El Nido. I'm currently on top of the Happiness Hostel and Restaurant. It's an amazing place owned by my good friend Sal, who I live with in Siargao. So if they're open while you're in town, make sure you check them out. Links will be down below in the description.
All right, so let's look at El Nido from above real quick. If we look at it from above using Google Maps, you can tell the 3 basic areas. We have the northern part of El Nido, we have sort of the middle center part of El Nido, and then the southern side. We can break down El Nido into a few parts, but I'll just give you guys some of the highlights of things that are open that I was able to find that you can currently do and explore while you're in this amazing province. So let's begin in El Nido town itself. The town itself really boasts a lot of restaurants and tour send-off areas. So this is where you're gonna go to take all your classic tours, which we're gonna touch in a bit. El Nido right now is a bit like a ghost town. A lot of the streets are empty, a lot of the restaurants are closed, but the ones that you can find that are open, we'll cover in the food section a little bit later. And as for clubs and bars and all that stuff, most are closed as well. There's not an insane amount of things to do in El Nido town itself, maybe besides the Tarao Cliff Walk. You can do the Tarao hike or the Canopy Walk. The Canopy Walk is a guided tour, super easy and good for all fitness levels pretty much. It's really fun, it shows you a really nice view of El Nido, and it's pretty affordable. Next up, we got the second most popular part of El Nido. Some even consider this part of El Nido town, but most of the locals there will not consider it part of El Nido town. This is the Corong Corong beachfront. Corong Corong is home to lots of restaurants and lots of hotels. It's a way more laid back vibe than El Nido. It's not really a clustered town, but it's more spread out on a beachfront. Corong Corong is just a few drives from Mari Megbeg Beach, which is a really nice place we'll cover in just a second. But even in Corong Corong, if you get down to the beachfront, you can do a bit of paddleboarding, you can watch the sunset, and enjoy just the incredible view that Corong Corong can offer you. Also, in between Corong Corong and El Nido town, you'll be able to find the El Nido Public Market. It's a pretty great market if you're looking for some fruits, vegetables, and just any sort of clothes items or cheap stuff that you can find at most basic Filipino markets. Next up, let's jump just south of Corong to a beach called Marimekmek Beach. I came out here, it's a lot of the same when it comes to Corong, just a little bit of a bigger beachfront. There's more bougie hotels with some really nice offerings, some good restaurants, as well as sort of a sidewinded island coming off the end of the peninsula of the beach. I was able to actually see a sea turtle while paddling here, so that was pretty cool. There's some nice reefs as well if you want to do some snorkeling there, but it's just another one of those spots with a beautiful white sand beach of El Nido you can get an amazing view of the province with. Let's move further north to a town called Leo. Leo is actually where the airport is, and that's probably where you're going to land if you take a flight into El Nido. Besides having a beautiful beach, Leo is shaping up to be the premier bougie resort town of El Nido. It's basically owned by the airline, and so there's tons of new restaurants being built there. While most things are closed right now during the pandemic, the beach is amazing to catch sunsets, and it's got a really nice pier. As well, you can come here at night during turtle hatching season to see sea turtles being released. I'll put links down below in the description so you guys can find out when this actually happens. But if you're here during turtle season, it's a really cool event to see, and you'll be supporting some of the local wildlife and the wildlife initiatives to save the sea turtles. Alright, so before we keep heading up north to the different beaches of El Nido, we'll take 2 stops at 2 really cool locations that are right next to each other. For first, we have the Eagle's Nest Mount Mansilawit, which is a pretty much unknown about hike. This hike will give you a mesmerizing view of El Nido, something that you truly won't forget. But I will say the hike is not for the faint of heart. It's not the simplest hike. Grab some closed-toed shoes and a water bottle and prepare to make a vertical ascent using ropes to make it to the top of this viewpoint. It takes about an hour to hike to the top, depending on your speed level, and you'll pass by some of the native eagle nests along the way, hence the name Eagle's Nest. The view from the top is insane and one of the best I've seen of El Nido, and probably one of the best I've seen in the Philippines in general. And next up, next to that mountain, we have the Nagkalit-Kalit waterfalls. This hike is also about 30 minutes to an hour in the opposite direction of where the mountain is. You'll be hiking down instead of up and make it to a nice, tame waterfall. There's nothing crazy here, no crazy jumps, just a very basic, small, nice waterfall in the middle of the jungle. The hike is really cool getting there. You cross about 7 different streams, and it's very refreshing to make it there on a hot day. Okay, so let's keep moving forward from those hikes, and we'll make it to our next beautiful beach of El Nido. This is called Nacpan Beach. If you've heard of El Nido, you've most likely heard of Nacpan Beach. Being about 40 minutes drive on a pretty rough road outside of El Nido town, it is well worth coming to Nacpan Beach. This beach is an expansive white sand beach with tons of resorts, hostels, and hotels lined up across the beach. Pre-pandemic, this place was an absolute party spot, but now it's pretty quiet, but it's still awesome to enjoy some really fun body surfing. Moving north another 30 minutes after Nacpan Beach, we'll make it to the barangay of Bukana, which houses the amazing Duli Beach. Duli Beach is pretty much the premier spot for surfing in El Nido. The surf here is seasonal, so keep that in mind, and I have to say, after visiting there, there's not a lot of options when it comes to surfboards. It might just be during the pandemic, but keep in mind that maybe there aren't going to be a lot of surfboards when you're there, especially not high quality ones. And even wax, to say the least. So come prepared knowing that, but if you can get a nice surf day, which we were able to, you'll be able to enjoy really nice waves on a nice sandy bottom. Great for longboarding and really good for beginners. There's only a few resorts here with limited options for food, but that's kind of what makes Duli Beach awesome. It's pretty quiet and really remote. Right next to Duli Beach, you have the town of Bukana, which is the barangay that Duli is a part of. This is a very local Filipino town. There's not much to see other than maybe the river spilling into the ocean, and you can do some basic shopping and necessities here. There's a few shops and a fish market. It's a nice town to visit overall, especially if you're into local Filipino towns that are more rural.
And of course, we couldn't skip over the tours. They've changed a bit.
Alright, so tours in El Nido are the most complicated to break down. It's also probably the #1 reason why you came to El Nido in the first place or are planning on your trip there, because they are well worth it. I couldn't complete every single tour while I was there because the tours are lettered from A to Z pretty much, which are the really popular ones, and then there's some other tour companies running them all the way through the letter Z. I'm going to list you every worthwhile location that I visited, but before we do that, I just want to talk to you guys about price. Expect to pay anywhere between 1,200 to 1,500 pesos per person per banca, or you could find some bancas for about 5,000, 7,000, or 12,000 pesos on the high end. It ranges depending on the amount of people, what island stops you make, if you're having food on board, which is typically not allowed now during the pandemic. And before I list you guys all the locations you should visit, keep in mind that plastic water bottles are not allowed on these boats. Also, as a final note, do not miss Big Lagoon. If you can only do one tour, make sure you go to Big Lagoon. It is amazing. All right, let's list every worthwhile El Nido tour location you can see that I visited.
Food is important everywhere you travel. And there are some options here. Let's dive into what's open and what's closed right now in El Nido. Food in El Nido. Because of this pandemic, a lot of the local businesses have been closed. But let's name to you guys some of the awesome restaurants that are still open nowadays. Keep in mind that I'm going to be giving you guys some of the more tourist-friendly restaurants. If you want to try something that's more local, there are tons of carinderia or turo style restaurants available pretty much everywhere in El Nido. These are going to be your basic Filipino cheap restaurants. You can get meals for about 100 pesos or even less sometimes. But as for more stylized restaurants, the Happiness Hostel and Restaurant. When this place is open, they serve some of the best fries on the island and an incredible hummus bowl. Besides that, they have tons of other vegetarian options like curries and rice bowls. Highly recommend checking out their food. Next up is Art Cafe. This was our go-to in El Nido. It's a little more on the expensive side, but you're getting really quality food and really big portions. Art Cafe serves amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And just across the street, they have a sort of mini art cafe that sells some of the foods they have inside of the restaurant for cheaper prices and sometimes local snacks that you can take on the go for all kinds of adventures. Be remiss if I didn't mention Gusto, the best ice cream I've had in the Philippines. Their dark chocolate flavor is incredible and the cones are to die for. Highly recommend checking out Gusto, and right above Gusto is the nightclub Pangolin. Next up, we have to mention Odessa Mama. This is a Ukrainian restaurant. Yes, a Ukrainian restaurant in El Nido, serving some of the best Eastern European home-style food. You can get anything from dumplings to bureks to straight-up delicious smoked fish. And they brew their own beer here. It's something you truly do not want to miss. It's amazing. Really close to this area, we also have Tuco. Tuco is a bar/restaurant. They do pop-up experiences where different locals or foreigners who are living in El Nido take over the kitchen for a night or two. And sometimes they even do this to raise money. It's pretty cool and I highly recommend checking it out. Next up, we couldn't miss Paul's Vegan Pita House. You're not going to want to miss this one. Paul is an awesome local Filipino who creates amazing vegan meals. Anything from veggie burgers to vegan balls to curries and tofu. It's really awesome, and if you're a vegan, this is your go-to fast food spot. The prices are also super affordable. If we jump over to the Corong area, we have the amazing Bella Vita Pizza Restaurant. They are an Italian restaurant, so they got some pasta dishes as well, but the pizza here was to die for. Really good. Highly recommend it. And if we go further south from Bella Vita, when we get to Mari Megmeg Beach, we got the Mari Megmeg Cafe and Restaurant right on the beach. This is an amazing place to go eat and get an incredible view. And on the hills above Mari Megmeg Beach, we have the Birdhouse, an incredible restaurant to get an incredible view of El Nido from high above with an awesome menu. Now, all those restaurants were in the main center of El Nido town or Corong, but I got one last recommendation for you guys. If you head up north to Leo, visit Cape ni Manang. The owners are from Bacolod. They make incredible breakfast. They're offering a limited menu right now due to the pandemic. They are incredible, great for coffee, omelets in the morning, scrambled eggs, toasts, whatever you want. They do it incredibly here. Super budget friendly as well. These are just some of the restaurants that are open right now. This isn't a super comprehensive list, but these were some of my favorites and regulars that I visited while in El Nido. And next up, we should talk about accommodations here in El Nido during this pandemic. It's a little bit tricky to navigate, but I'll break it down for you. So all accommodations now during the pandemic have to be vetted by the DOT, the Department of Tourism in the Philippines. They accredit these different resorts and hotels with accreditation that they're complying with COVID-19 regulations. I highly suggest hopping on the El Nido Tourism website to get the list of accredited accommodations and resorts, and then using Airbnb to cross-verify which ones are on Airbnb, and then use my freaking Airbnb code to save yourself $40 off your first stay on Airbnb. This can be well over a few free nights for stay in El Nido. I highly recommend you do this. Overall, traveling to El Nido during this pandemic is an incredible experience. It's definitely more expensive than it was back in the day, but getting to experience the sights here, especially on tours, especially places like Big Lagoon, with no tourists in them, is mind-blowing, and it's probably something that won't happen ever again in the future. So if you can afford it and you can make it here, obviously legally and using the requirements that the government has provided, make it out here, flock it out here as fast as you can, support the locals down here because they need it, and obviously visit these sites respectfully and enjoy your time in El Nido. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure that you use that Airbnb link down below in the description and anything else that I've added down there. I also have a Patreon you guys can subscribe to if you want to get some cool perks, interact with me in some other cool ways. Check out all my friends who helped make this video possible, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you long time. Goodbye, claps.